Hello, welcome back to PlayStation Access. I'm Nathan. I'm here with Dave.
Hello.
Dave, we are underneath Spider-Man.
We found the one bit of shade in this whole area.
Yes, and you can see the convention centre in the background. We're at E3, proper E3, and I've seen my first game where I get to sit in a room and have a game shown to me.
Yeah, and it's a massive game.
And it was Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice.
From
Software.
From Software.
From Software. So it is important that I go through a list of 13 things that I found out about it, Dave.
Yeah.
It is, as you probably would expect, a mixture of things which are quite a lot like the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, like, you know, the legacy games of From Software, but some really new stuff as well. It's an interesting mix, so I'm just going to go through my list.
Please do. I'm aching to know about this game.
Number one, Dave, it's a single-player game set in late 1500s Japan.
Wow. Okay, just a 400-year difference.
Yeah,
there.
that would have
1500s Japan.
Yeah, and it's an era called the Warring States period. Lots of bloodshed in this period of Japanese history.
Okay.
But they did stress it's not really because there are games which are historical games.
Yes.
Which especially about Japanese history. And they've got all the different lords in it, and they're accurate to a certain degree.
Yeah.
This is much more kind of inspired by the architecture, the plants.
Okay.
And there are some kind of maybe notable people around, but it's very much like a fantastic world.
Right. Okay.
That's one of the things they wanted us to know.
Okay. So 1500s Japan inspired.
Yes. Number two. It's a violent game about a violent period, Dave.
I was going to say, I'm not sure it was a happy time in Japan.
No, well, it's called the Warring States period. So it is. It has that darkness that you might expect from a From Software game, but the interesting thing here is that they've also said that one of the things that they're inspired by this time is how, like, the natural beauty of Japan.
Yeah.
And, obviously hundreds of years ago, without the touch of kind of modern civilization, that was something which they really wanted to reflect in the game. So they showed us some screenshots. Japan is an incredibly beautiful place.
Yes, I know.
So we're talking kind of mountains, waterfalls, meadows, and some of this stuff was in the trailer, like the kind of evocative places that you would kind of see, like set pieces or, real eye-catching. Every kind of scene in that trailer could have been a screenshot kind of thing.
So although it's only inspired by 1500s Japan, would you say that the setting, the kind of environments are quite not so fantastical as as other From Software games, or
I don't know.
There's a heavy dose of fantasy in there.
We'd have to see more. So the example they showed us actually was like a castle,
right?
And in the demo that they showed us, the castle was in the distance, and it's enormous. And they were kind of like, a castle this big does not exist in the world,
right?
But the style of it, it's based on architectural style of the time.
Okay, cool.
So it's kind of grounded. Yeah, it's maybe not like that kind of fantasy world of Bloodborne is like completely crazy.
Yes, I remember.
And it seems more toned down than that, I would say.
Okay, sure. What's next?
Number 3, the hero.
Yes.
He is a shinobi.
Right.
Sworn to defend the young lord.
Okay, so a shinobi is a ninja?
Very stealthy guy, yeah.
Right.
Softly trodden man. He is described as cold and brutal.
Right.
So you are tasked with defending this young lord, and the Ashina clan are hunting the young lord. And one of the things you see in the trailer, that kind of showdown with the samurai on that summit, which is one of the beautiful kind of natural settings, it did remind me of Neo a little bit. I mean, like, they are drawing from the same influences here. So that scene in particular reminded me of the very Kurosawa-esque scene in Neo. But you lose that fight.
Oh.
And two things happen then, Dave. So the young lord, so basically who you are is very much locked into your need to protect this young lord. The kind of beginning of the game, or the game's plot, is that you fail to do that initially.
Okay.
And that leads to number 4, the game's themes. Game's themes are so important when we're talking about From Software.
Yeah, definitely.
And we were having a chat about this before we started filming. Dark Souls is very much about being alive or being dead.
Yes.
And Bloodborne is much more about the kind of madness, sane or insane kind of knowledge as a path to insanity. The whole kind of Lovecraftian kind of deal. This, I'm not sure that we're really in a position to say what the absolute themes are going to be, but in the room, From Software, we're talking about the game's themes being your character trying to retrieve the Lord and willing to put himself on the line, and also revenge.
Right.
So I don't know if they're really a duality in the same way, or how From Software's kind of track record of playing with themes where there is kind of a duality to them, whether that's going to come through so much in this game.
Yeah, sounds like loyalty what kind of what your how much you put into your like role, how much it means to you to be a shinobi, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The idea of
it's interesting. It starts with a big failure of that role, I guess, as well, and then
exactly. And I'm going to go on to number 5, and I probably should have mentioned that you lose your arm in that fight, because that is something that happens.
Did we see that in the trailer?
Yeah. His arm is fully off, man. It's fully off.
I missed that.
And number 5, you get a replacement arm.
That's why I missed it.
It's called...
I didn't look closely.
The Shinobi prosthetic is what they're calling it internally at the moment.
Right.
It's actually the thing that at the Game Awards, when they teased their next game, and there was a kind of a bloody rope. That was the arm.
Oh, God.
And at the moment, that's the loading screen, certainly for the demo that we saw as well.
Right.
The Shinobi prosthetic is multi-purposed and has lots of applications, and it completely changes the gameplay.
It's the Swiss Army knife of the Shinobi.
It very much is, yeah. And do you know, like the interesting thing here is I don't think that there has been I don't want to say gimmick, but like a central kind of in a From Software game, it's quite arcadey, isn't it? To go like, now you've got like a cool arm, like, and it is going to change. It's huge for gameplay. It's like proper kind of like Bionic Commando style stuff.
Is there like reminiscence of in Bloodborne you'd have weapons that would have like two different sort of positions?
Well, it's funny you should say this. Well, that's actually number 7. But for number 6 right now, we're going to talk about the grappling hook, which is just like its standard thing, is that it's a grappling hook. And this changes everything. It's in the trailer. And I was very surprised. The thing I was really surprised by here when I saw the live gameplay was how freely it can be used. So, I was thinking, fair enough.
When this highlight comes up, press X to grapple.
And it might be that it works on some surfaces and not other surfaces. But for sure, we started off in a tree with the castle in the distance. Getting down from the tree, used the grappling hook. Moving to a rooftop, moved the grappling hook, and then moved to another rooftop. So there was like a pathway on the ground. Yeah. But it was just like skipping this bit of the level. We're just getting moving. And they were talking about how this game, how in all From Software games recently, they have tried to create a sense of verticality, which is kind of true if you think about going into the depths or Undead Burg or whatever in Dark Souls, and then if you think about Bloodborne, you can descend into the sewers, and they're tiered kind of geographies.
I have so many questions. Can I ask very quickly, is it only used
I just want to say that the grappling hook is being used to double down on that sense of verticality.
Is it only used for traversal?
No, I don't think so. They didn't show us, but they mentioned that it can does have some kind of combat application as well.
And does this also mean then, like from what you described, that there's kind of like multiple paths, things that you can...
Yeah, man, although that's going to come up later.
Okay.
But,
I've got to stop skipping ahead.
Well, it's a From Software game, so you can kind of imagine how their maps and their worlds are discovered, and then there's routes through them and shortcuts and those sorts of things.
That is the special sauce, the From Software environments. I don't know how they do that.
So, but I will say that the grappling hook, Dark Souls is not like a really flowing... There's a real skill to the combat, but it's not, you're not like agile. Bloodborne a little bit more so, but this, I guess you're a shinobi. So the whole feel of it's different. It introduces a bit of stealth as well, and there are so you grappling hooked over to a ledge. There's ledge handholds, hanging from a ledge. Then a ledge takedown. Like this, you think about the kind of pretty sturdy character that you play in Dark Souls. Yeah, it's just a very different kind of thing. So grappling hook, everybody, and then.
Number 7, I think we know, but
Thanks,
tell us anyway.
Weapons. Yes, it does do weapons. So I actually thought this looks like Bloodborne when we encountered some enemies who had shields. Yeah. And they were just tougher. Normal katana wasn't cutting through them. The arm ka-chunk, unfolded into a heavier axe, and then there were kind of sweeping attacks really low under the shield, and then just crashing down and smashing the shield to pieces.
Nice. That's got to hurt your shoulder.
And it can be other weapons put in there as well. There are ranged attack. There are shurikens.
I was going to say shuriken.
Shurikens. And also, we saw a screenshot of kind of blinding explosives, which are used to kind of put people off. It looked like he had a really intense sparkler.
Do you have any knowledge as yet as to how many weapons you can have at any one time, or how you
Yes.
gain weapons?
Not how you
Excellent.
gain weapons, but so you're always going to have a katana always in your right hand. Your
Yep.
left hand is always going to be this prosthetic.
Yeah.
And I think there's, you're going to have your axe, but the shurikens are on top. They're kind of so you can have them at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the effects. I'm not
Right.
sure what they replace.
Okay.
But certainly you're going to be rocking with kind of two weapons, and one of them is going to be kind of modular. Like, the arm is going to be changed up. I'm not sure if your katana can also be upgraded and changed.
Right.
But certainly the focus for what they showed us was
Yep.
the arm.
Cool.
Number 8. Let's talk about combat.
Please.
This is another really big point of difference. So I think probably on all the things we've kind of spoken about so far, you can kind of, hopefully you're getting the sense that this is similar to From Software's games, but updated.
Yeah.
The combat is a really big point of difference. So just using the katana, apparently Miyazaki-san has been referring it to it as sword-on-sword clashing combat.
Yeah.
And it's different. It's really different.
Okay.
So you are when we first saw it, it was a bit confusing. There were loads of clangs,
Yeah.
and then a special move was done, and I was like, I don't really understand what's going on. The
Right.
swords are kind of hitting each other.
Yeah.
Is because I guess in Dark Souls or even in Bloodborne, you might attack at the same time, but the game will resolve one attack and then you'll be staggered away, so you won't do any damage.
Yes.
Here, the swords are actually hitting each other, so it's more like sword play, and it revolves around a system of posture.
Right.
Posture
Okay.
is like the thing.
Okay.
There's a bar that sits in the middle of the screen at the moment, currently, always subject to change, and it shows your posture. And in any given fight, your posture will go up or down. Well, certainly down. And you want to retain as much posture as possible.
Okay.
And you want to so it's a bit like stamina in that way. I don't know if there's also a stamina meter because they turn the UI off,
Right.
so we couldn't talk about it.
So it's not like you don't choose a posture. I mean, when you said posture, I kind of thought of For Honor, which obviously
No.
famously about swords, where you kind of choose your posture. This is more about a
Being
resource
set.
that you
It's more like
that you maintain.
how poised you are.
Right.
And it's so to give you an example, you can block all the time.
Yeah.
If you receive a blow while you're blocking, your posture will go down a little bit.
Right.
If you receive it when you're not blocking at all, it will go down a lot.
Right.
And if you parry, if you block just as they're attacking, then the attacker's posture will go down.
Right.
So blocking can be kind of, an effective kind of tactical weapon at the same time. Once someone's posture is all the way down, they are opened up to a Shinobi death blow,
Yeah.
and then you don't want to be on that.
That doesn't sound good.
No, and that's kind of like, they're staggered. You can see their change of state, and then you get in for a bigger attack. And those attacks, I think, you can learn various ones. And
What really excites me about From Software with stuff like this is that they've called it posture for a reason. It's not just like, let's call the stamina bar something else.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it will have direct influence in like how that gameplay mechanic works. Like
Yeah.
it's to do with your actual posture, it's not just stamina rebranded.
And I think there's probably stamina as well.
Right.
Like, I think this is like an added thing to get across the samurai to samurai kind of combat.
Yeah.
And I feel like direct comparison with Neo is warranted in this instance. I'm always wary about comparing Souls-like games to other Souls-like games. Some people hate it. But in terms of how they have both dealt with a similar thematic setting, and the fact that samurai sword play is extremely skilled. Neo went one way. It's very, very complicated with the ki and like energy recovery, and they're different, their own kind of different stances. This is like another way, but getting across like a similar feel. The idea that you're facing someone who also has a dangerous weapon, and you're kind of tactically trying to kind of get around it without just timing an attack at the right point, and then you win. Like, that's not what it's about.
Did you get any sense if the control scheme is similar, like still light attacks and heavy attacks?
No
idea about
no
that.
idea. No.
Okay. No worries.
What else do I want to say about combat before we move on? There is also stealth. Stealth is quite a big thing in the game. Not full stealth, not like you'll feel bad if you don't do it, but just there are stealth elements, so you can because of the verticality, so you can just get up in a tree. There are kind of these tree branches which are obviously meant for you to kind of traverse on. You can go onto ledges, and you can kind of do big like jump down full, not the old Dark Souls just falling attack, like a proper, you're jumping on people's shoulders and shoving a sword into the top of their head.
So they want you to, I guess since you have more control over where you go with the grappling hook, you can kind of set traps a bit or try and plan.
Certainly you can, yes, and you can catch people unawares and just regular kind of stealth attacks as well.
And there's a bonus, I guess,
there's horizon, where they don't know you're there and they die.
Yeah.
There is also like long grass, kind of horizon style.
Right.
So there are things which kind of deaden your, lower your visibility and
Yeah.
heighten it. They didn't really go into details about how exactly that
high-vis
mechanic
jacket.
works. Got to ditch that.
Yeah.
Get that out of the customization menu. And there is like a UI kind of sense of it, because when you're in the long grass, the edges of the screen are dimmed a little bit. It's a bit of an iris there. So, so there is stealth, and combat is very different. Posture makes it completely different. Bosses.
Number 9.
Number 9, bosses.
Yeah.
There are them.
Yes.
They are in the game.
Saw those in the trailer.
So we saw a couple of mid-level bosses.
Okay.
And the fights were very much about getting their posture down and then delivering Shinobi death blows to take away a lot of their health. Again, we were playing with the UI completely off, so it's hard to tell exactly how much damage was being done normally versus how much was being done by these Shinobi death blows. And then we got into and one of the mid-level bosses was like really From Software. It was. I got into this kind of big arena, like a pit, in the courtyard of the castle, and there was a giant man. No reason that he's bigger than everybody else. He's wild. He's got crazy hair. He's screaming. He's in some kind of stock, so he's got like a big wooden ball around his neck.
Right.
The other people in the castle who are your enemies are like, they've trapped him, but when the fight starts, he's just fighting you as well.
Right.
The music is like, like full From Software kind of style.
Yeah.
And the man is just like, and like kicking you. And I was like, cool. Like I've been here before.
Yeah.
And then like the end level boss or the mid-end level boss, there was like a gate, like traversing the
like a portal.
Yeah, the foggy kind of gate. I can't remember what it's called. That's incredible.
Right. We know what you mean though.
Yeah, good. And it was a character called the Corrupted Monk.
Okay.
Who is a female character, had a kind of a Nor theatre-like style mask, baggy kind of clothes, robes, almost like a nun's habit, and an enormous katana, almost like a spear. It was so long, like a real curved.
Yeah.
And she had tons of kind of spinning attacks, and that was in this beautiful red-leafed garden.
Okay.
And so again, the idea of hitting up those kind of like the setting for making sure that it looks like super attractive.
Yeah.
And that felt like, when you just playing From Software game and you're waiting for the bosses, because they obviously put so much effort into the design and the environment and the feel of them.
Yeah.
And it just felt like we were in good hands. This was like a Warring States period version of what we've come to expect.
Yeah. That sounds great.
The developers died at that point. I don't know if they always die, but they died.
Okay.
And they did not get back up again. Talking about bosses or giant things, there was one point where the bridge to the castle was out, and the castle's in the mountains. There's an enormous ravine. Obviously, with the grappling hook, we were traversing the ravine, like branch to branch, like finding little tunnels and stuff. And then at some point, there was just a giant snake, like huge.
Okay.
I wrote a swear word in my notes. It's just like, and he just pops his head around, and he's like, imagine there's like an enormous mountain pass with a castle on top, and there's just this massive snake guarding the entire ravine.
Wow. He's big enough to do that.
He's like, the first time you see a dragon in Dark Souls, and you're like, oh man, I can't fight this, so what's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's like that. And they were talking about, the reason I bring it up is because they're hoping to have several encounters throughout the game, kind of bespoke little bits where you encounter something which is that size.
Right.
And you don't, or the mechanic was described as cat and mouse, so not necessarily full on combat, but you might have to deal with them or traverse away from them, or I don't know how exactly. In this instance, we kind of snuck past, just made it to a tunnel, and then we're on to the next kind of bit of the game.
I like that it's not just fight, fight this big thing.
Yeah, certainly with dragons in. I don't think I've ever killed a dragon in Dark Souls. I've always just run. Number 11, really quick then. Structure. The structure of the game, as you this is one that I kind of said we were going to be talking about in a bit, and now here we are. They described it as most like, think of Dark Souls 1.
Right.
In terms of there will be a world where everything is interconnected.
Okay.
You will discover alternate routes as you open up more of the game.
Yeah.
And there will be NPCs dotted through the game rather than kind of settlements. There'll be individual NPCs that you're going to be able to encounter and then interact with.
Okay.
And I thought they confirmed that at the end. And the first thing I said that we saw was the castle in the distance. And, it had that real kind of Dark Souls thing of like, oh, look, you can see immediately where you want to go to. It's miles away, but the whole world is already
You'll be getting there.
rendered and it's in place. Yeah, and you're going to be going over
Yeah.
there. Number 12, you can revive, but it's limited in a way that they are not willing to describe yet. So there was one point where and by revive I mean no progress lost, you haven't blacked out into a loading screen,
Okay.
you're on the ground, like a kanji symbol comes up, it says revival, you get up and then like everyone has walked off, so you can actually do a couple of stealth attacks, you know.
Right.
Sometimes it actually helps you, they were saying that, you know,
Okay.
it puts you into some good
It
situations.
might be something you purposefully do.
Yeah, and then the question was asked, you know, does this mean, you know, what are the limitations on it? And one of the guys, the developers from Software, was like, yeah, I don't want to give you the impression that this is going to be the first From Software game that you're going to be able to complete easily. Like, you're only going to be able to do that sometimes.
Right.
So it's still, you know, don't get the idea that just because you can revive, it's really easy.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be. Number 13, our last thing, Dave, is all played as one class.
Oh.
You are that Shinobi character.
You are that guy.
Yes, and so you'll be making decisions about your gameplay style as you go through the game, depending on where you want to put your kind of ability points and change your equipment.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, so I guess more kind of Bloodborne-y than anything else in terms of like, you know, your equipment will determine your class,
yes,
as it were.
Got you.
Rather than there being specific class abilities. Yeah, and they were kind of mentioning, you know, the only ability that they obviously didn't want to give too much away, but as the example was strengthen your katana strikes. So
Right.
I guess, you know, you're going to be like, there's going to be like a character customization tree of some kind, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things you're going to be able to do. So I imagine, you know, you'll be able to power up different weapons, maybe put some stuff down into stealth or
Yep.
speed or grappling hook or
Sure.
whatever. So yeah, that's our 13 things.
I have one last question
Yeah, go for it.
related to point number 1.
Okay.
You might not know the answer, but you said that it's a single-player game.
Yes.
Does this mean that is it single-player? Do you know in the way like Dark Souls was? Like, are there any
don't
online
know.
online components?
I'm not sure.
Right.
I
Fair
just
enough.
don't know.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
they didn't cover that. Hopefully, someone else at E3 will be able to get that out.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there
Wow,
we go.
it's interesting.
But I'm excited.
Yes.
And I want to see more. I want to get to play it.
Yeah, me too. I'm very jealous.
It's out next year.
Right.
Yes, and that's all I know. I have exhausted all of my store of information.
Okay, well that's
So-
fine. Well, thank you very much for getting the information, Nath. Although, as I say, I'm very jealous, but I'm glad that you get to see it and you've spoken to From Software. That's really exciting. Let us know in the comments below what you think of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Do like this video if you like this video and subscribe because we've got loads more coming up from PlayStation and E3.